And we're back again. It's Mrs. Hoekstra. I'm on Module 3, Lesson 12, Properties of Inequalities. You'll notice my essential question on the top of page 95, and it says, what causes the inequality sign to change? And then I want to add to it, and to remain the same. All right? So there's a couple things we need to talk about before we can jump into this, and basically what the word preserve and reverses is talking about so that we can understand the problems. So to preserve the inequality sign, when you see that pop up in these problems that I'm going to give you, basically what I want to know is what keeps the inequality the same, right? So we're going to say the inequality sign remains the same. And you're thinking, well, why wouldn't it remain the same? And you'll see what happens today. And then reverses, right? So preserves means it's going to remain the same. All right? Reverses, on the other hand, the inequality sign changes to the opposite. The inequality sign changes. It's going to change to the opposite. And just so that we can understand what inequalities I'm referring to the greater than, the less than, the greater than or equal to, and the less than or equal to, right? The little line underneath is the or equal to part. So it could be that whole thing, you know, it could be that it's greater than that number or even equal to that number. Both of them are possible. All right, now it says that there's different stations, and instead of doing it as stations, because we're doing a flipped classroom, I'm just going to give you all some numbers and ask you to do this activity. All right, so what we're going to do on this first one here, I'm going to give you guys some numbers. I'm going to put the number 6, and I'm going to give you the number 2. All right, and you're going to put an inequality sign in there. Just keep going with me a minute. I'm going to give you -2 for the next one and a -1. Then I'm going to give you a +1 and a 4. And then I'm going to give you a -6 and a 5. And what I want you to do is to put the inequalities in the proper spots here. Then what I want you to do is to follow the operation. So add -3 or subtract 2 or subtract -1 or add 1. I want you to do the new math here, right? So if you'll notice, this was -3 and then +2, and they get -1. And then on this one here, they had 5 + 2, and they got 7. And then just tell me, did the inequality sign, which was less than a minute ago, and it still is less than, it got preserved. It remained the exact same from the original to the new. I want you to fill this whole chart in and do the question at the bottom of page 95, where it says examine the results and make a statement about what you notice. All right, so at this point, I want you to hit pause. Okay, and I want you guys to do this problem. All right, hit pause. All right, so there's all my work. And you'll notice, like for the first one where I had 6 was greater than -2, I now have 3 is greater than -5, and the sign is preserved. They both were greater thans. The second one that I have is -2 is less than -1. When I subtracted 2, I now have -4 is less than -3, and it is again preserved. 1 is less than 4, and when I subtract 1 from both sides, I now have 0 is less than 5, which is also preserved. And -6 is less than 5. When I add 1 to both sides, -5 is less than 6, and it is still preserved. So what did I notice? I noticed that either adding or subtracting the same number on both sides preserves the inequality. So adding and subtracting doesn't change it one bit. Okay, let's go to page 96. Now what we're going to do is we're going to use the exact same numbers over and over again, just to make it easy for ourselves. So we're going to have our 6 and our -2, our -2 and a -1, a 1 and a 4, and -6 and 5. All right, our inequalities a minute ago, they're not going to have changed. So we're going to still have our greater than, our less than, a less than, and a less than. All right, on this group, again, I'm going to have you guys pause. I want you to multiply everything, both sides, by -1. Look what happens to the inequality sign and tell me if it's preserved or reversed. All right, so go ahead. I want you at this time to hit pause. And I want you guys to try this one again. All right, so I went through the whole problem again, and you'll see that my 6 is greater than -2 became -6 is less than 1. And it's reversed, right? The sign changed. -2 is less than -1, changed to 2 is greater than +1. Again, it's reversed. My 1 is less than 4, became -1 is greater than -4. The sign was reversed, changed directions. And -6 is less than 5, became +6 is greater than -5. And again, the sign is reversed, right? My inequality every single time changed, right? Look at the original and look at the new one. Look at the original, look at the new one. Look at the original, look at the new one. They've changed every time. So when multiplying by -1, the inequality sign changes direction, right? It changed direction. It reversed. It's different. All right, well, I wonder if that's true for all multiplication then. Well, let's find out. So we're going to go to station 3. Again, we're going to do the exact same numbers, okay? So just copy those numbers over. And we already know that 6 is greater than -2. We already know that -2 is less than -1. We know that +1 is less than +4. And we also know that -6 is less than +5. All right, we're going to use the same numbers over and over again. This time, we're going to multiply or divide. Notice multiply and divide are in these problems. So let's see what happens when we do these. Again, I want you to hit pause, work out this chart, and see what happens. All right, so here's my work again, and you'll see that my first one became 12 is greater than -4. And it preserved the sign. The sign stayed the same, right? The inequalities did not change. It was greater than, and it remained greater than. -2 is less than -1 became -1 is less than -1/2. Again, the signs stayed the same. 1 is less than 4 when I divided it by half. 2 is less than 8. Notice that the inequality signs remained the same. And -6 is less than 5 becomes -18 is less than -15 when I multiplied both sides by 3, and again, the signs remain the same. So if you notice, I multiplied or divided this time by what kind of numbers? Well, they're all positive numbers. So what happens? Multiplying or dividing by a positive number preserves the inequality sign. It did not change, okay? It did not change. All right, next page. We're going to do the exact same thing again. This time we're going to multiply or divide by different numbers instead of just -1. Because, you know, maybe it was because it was a -1 that sign changed in the other one. So let's find out what's going on. So again, let's work with our same numbers. 6 is greater than -2. -2 is less than -1. +1 is less than 4. And -6 is less than +5. All right, this time you're going to multiply or divide by these different numbers and tell me what you notice about the inequality signs. So once again, hit pause. Okay, so here's my work again. My 6 is greater than -2 becomes -18 is less than 6. It's reversed. -2 is less than -1 became 1 is greater than 1/2. Again, the sign reversed. 1 is less than 4 became -2 is greater than -8. The signs are reversed. And -6 is less than 5 becomes 3 is greater than -2.5. Again, the sign is reversed. So what you notice is that when multiplying or dividing by a negative number, right, all of those had negatives in it, the inequality reverses the direction. It all changed. Okay, so when you come back to class, we're going to talk about these rules, and we're actually going to do page 99 together. All right, so don't go on ahead and do 99. We're going to work in a group and kind of discuss and talk. All right, so that is all for this lesson. I'll see you all in class.